going on? What's going down? Alright, so today, Paris to Figari, flight 7328. Let's get into it. Alright, my setup is not quite set up, if that makes any sense. So, excuse me. Alright, so we cold and dark. Do that. Can barely see anything, but let's get it rocking. Fuel pumps on. Batteries on. Crew supply on. Bing bing. We can hit the lights for now. My nav. Auto. We can put the adheres to nav. Just from the look of it, that should suffice for now. Alright, so we got the cockpit preparation. Batteries are on. External power is on. APU engine fire test, my favorite. Okay. There we go. Good. So, what time is it? Flight's supposed to leave, I think, at 7:10, 6:46. We got a half an hour. I'm gonna hold off on the APU for now just to save some fuel, but going down the checklist, crew supply is on. Adheres are on nav. Nav lower and lower lights are on. No smoking signs are on. Seatbelt signs on. Emergency lights are armed. Annunciator light test. Looks good to me. Alright, that is checked. And probe window heat off right now. Air condition as required. I'm gonna leave that alone. IQ brake pressure should be reading 0. Let's see, there we go. Yep, we got no pressure reading at all, so good. ECAM status. Nothing there. And ECAM recall. Normal. Radio panels are on. Alright, so let's log into this iPad or iPad wannabe. Time was it again? 6:47. I'm gonna do this right here. So 6:47 local, 4:47 Zulu. So 5:10 is our departure time. Yeah, I know. So 0510. 23 minutes. Do mass imbalance. Load aircraft. Right, real time 21. So we're boarding currently. 127 passengers. So next, setting up the CDU. I think I was planning for 37,000. We can go ahead and throw that in there now. Get it out the way. Alright. We had to select the AOC menu, write init, let's init data request. 3, 2, 1, and 0. Right. Then let's shoot over to init request. Meantime, put the flight number in, 7328, AFR 7328. Cruising 37,000. Clear. Alright, so we need to find out what the flight plan credentials are. Alright, operational flight plan. Yep, click here to import. Alright, so we're calling, oh shoot, sorry. So we're calling for a block fuel of 16.5 thousand pounds. Let's say 16.6. And I think the cost index was 22. It's true. 22. So flight plan, we're departing runway 8 left. Latra 5 hotel departure. Insert. And Figari, we're doing ILS 23 off of the this V word. And it's the 2R. Or something like that. Yeah. Vera. Huh. I'm not seeing that, so let's check the flight plan again. Or is it out? Here. Yeah, Varick 2 Romeo. I don't know why that's not showing up. I got a Varick 2 Mike and a Varick 2 Victor. While we're here, we'll just do the weather brief real quick. And weather at Paris is 040 at 810 knots. 230 at 12. Is that Figari? Okay. Let's jump over to the charts page because I gotta figure out which departure to use. So import route. Figari. Approach or arrival, sorry. Is Varick to Mike. Varick to Victor. Yeah, it is a Varick to Romeo. There you go, Varick to the AJO VOR. 6,500 feet or higher. Then down to Kilo Fox 600. Huh. This is the Romeo. What's different about the Romeo from the Victor? The Victor does look more. It does look better for, since we're going to be on that side of the airport. But it's just going to take us to, and then it's going to take us past the airport on the right side that we're supposed to be on to Kilo Fox 700, then over to Masal at 5,000. And I guess it's a right hand. Yeah, let's go for the Victor. But for shits and giggles, let's look at the mic too. Varick to Mike. Mike Will made it. Mike will take me directly to the field. Yeah, let's go Victor. We'll go Victor. Okay, so that's in. Go ahead and get clearance.
De Gaulle ground Air France 7328 IFR to Figari, ready to copy.
Air France 7328 is cleared to Figari Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 08 left climb and maintain 11,000 feet. Departure frequency is 125.7 squawk 2637.
2637.
Air France 7328 cleared to Figari Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 08 left climb and maintain 11,000 feet. Departure on 125.7 squawk 2637.
Air France 7328 readback correct. Contact ground on 121.61. Good day.
Good day. Good day. Oh, we got some skippies. It's different. Alright. So what I'll do, we'll jump back over here, switch apps. It is 7:10, right? Departure. Double check that 7:10. Alright. So we got 14 minutes. 14 minutes. 14 minutes is cool. I'll start the APU now. 30 seconds. Alright, let's go down to CPU, Atsu menu. Flight. Oh, you know what? I should have went to receive messages. Shoot, I have to. AOC menu, receive messages. Let's accept this load sheet. Oh man. Alright, so we're good for now. APU on? Nope, not yet. You can hear it started. Alright, it's available. APU bleed is on. Give it a moment. Disconnect from ground power. Go over to the iPad and make sure the ground power is completely disconnected. Alright, so we have about another 12 minutes on the boarding. For now, I believe all my instruments are checked. Yeah, everything looks good for now. So, I will just leave her here like this for now, and I'll be back in a second. Alright, I'm back. I'm back. I'm better than ever. Alright. Alright, so looking at it, 7 minutes. Are we still boarding? Of course we are. Should be just about done though. I'll prepare the CDU to get the weights in. Once we get the weights and the fuel in, then we can. And that's risen a lot. Turn that light off. But yeah, once we get the weights and the fuel in, then we can put in the. We can get the numbers for the speeds. We got 106 people out of 127. 107. Right. So get a weather update. Make sure winds 040 at 10. Clear visibility. Okay. Looks like a very clear day. 23 degrees Celsius. And arriving 2:30 at 13. Clear day. Just got some wind down the runway, which isn't a big deal. Not a big deal at all. And our alternate, just in case, which is Rome, 2507, clear and visibility, okay. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Just learned something new. Let's see. ATIS offline. Okay. So we can go ahead and connect my company A cars in the meantime. Go see how many more passengers we are waiting on. 117, so 10 more passengers. Double check this overhead. Everything looks good. APU is on, air bleed, okay. Lights are. Seatbelt signs, emergency signs are okay. Yeah, everything's good. Everything is good. I don't see any discrepancies anywhere. Just waiting on the. No, you can turn the lights off too. But need them since it's really daytime. Let's fix it. Turn the floodlight and turn off panel light. $124, $127. We almost there. So it looks like it's going to be 123.4. Dang, 123.5. Whew, it's close. 123.5, 29.6. 123.5 slash 29.6. How much fuel do we say we're carrying? 16.5. Alright, 16.5. Alright, let's go over the takeoff page and then switch to the performance app. Alright, 8 left, dry surface, yep. Flap config. Whatever is optimal. No, we always go flaps 2. Force token, no. Anti-ice is off. Packs are going to be on. And let's sync the weather and the weight. Let's sync the weather. Calculate. Alright, so V1 139, VR 139, V2 141. No trim. 68 degrees on the flex temp. 39, 41, 68. 39, 139, 141, 2/DN 0.0, no trim. 68 on the flex. Alright, so let's call the pushback.
Cockpit to ground.
This is ground. Stand by.
Somebody just took off. What are you trying to connect to, buddy? You're kind of off there. I'm gonna let him do his thing.
Okay, sir. The bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all ground equipment is removed. Standing by for pushback.
Right, you want reverse?
Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead.
We are cleared for start and push. Parking brake set.
Okay, cleared for push start. Please release parking brake.
And brakes release.
Parking brakes are released.
Beacon light on.
Commencing pushback. You can start the engines in sequence.
It will start in the sequence.
Alright, before start checklist. Windows and doors closed, APU is on, APU bleeds on, external power is disconnected, fuel pumps are on, seatbelt sights are on, seatbelt signs. Thrust levels, idle barrel reference is set, fuel quantity 6.5 set, takeoff data is set in view, transponder is on auto, beacon light is on. Let's start that right turn some. Ain't gotta be a big right turn, but alright, go straight back now. Alright. Engine mode selector on ignition, starting engine 2. Out some. We should be able to stop here.
Please set your parking brake.
Brake set.
Parking brake set. Ground. You may disconnect.
Okay, sir. Cleared to disconnect. Pin has been removed. See you at the side. Have a good flight.
Have a
Holding
good
position,
flight.
waiting for the visual. Thank you and goodbye.
Engine 2 is idle, then stabilize. So starting engine 1. Engine 2 is increasing. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There goes N1 rising. Fuel flow and EGT is gone. Alright, into the 32%. And the one at 10%. Alright. So one is just about stabilized. it's like 18.7. Alright, 0.6, 7. Alright, there we go. So we have a good start. After start, park and brake is set. Engine mode selector back to normal. APU bleed off. APU master off. External, not even external, auto brakes, max. Find it right, there we go. Flaps 2. Spoilers armed. Flight control. So there we got full left. There we got full right. Neutral. Up. Full down. Neutral. Full right rudder. Neutral. Full left rudder. Neutral. And the trim is 0, like it's supposed to be. Alright, rudder trim is zeroed out as well. Flight instruments are checked. You know, one thing I want to change, hold on, because it's really messing with. Yeah, I'm on West Europe, the East. Alright. I think that might allow it to be a little bit better. But alright, so that's it. Let's request taxi to 8 left. Brake release.
Airfront 7328 taxi to and hold short of runway 08 left via taxiway Tango Foxtrot 3 Echo Tango Foxtrot 2 Golf for Tango Foxtrot 1 Echo 1 Golf 3 Tango Bravo 1 Foxtrot Foxtrot November for November Uniform Uniform Tango for Charlie Uniform Tango 2 Tango 1. Contact tower on 119er decimal 6 tree when ready.
Acknowledge that.
Taxiing hold short runway 08 left using taxiway Tango Foxtrot Tree Echo Tango Foxtrot 2 Golf for Tango Foxtrot 1 Echo 1 Golf Tree Tango Bravo 1 Foxtrot Foxtrot November for November Uniform Uniform Tango for Charlie
Tower,
Uniform Tango 2 Tango
and we
1
are
Airfront
moving.
7328.
Alright. So the taxi day left isn't really too crazy. You basically just have to cross the apron, hit a left after, and then maybe a right and another left, and we're basically there. I'm gonna adjust my seat some. Oh. Alright, this is a lot better. As I give it a little bit more power, we're doing 8 knots. I'm gonna probably do about 10 to 15 on the regular. Get the turn in. Come on, give me some more throttle. Some more throttle. Eight 13. Alright, let's let it roll. Man, I don't know why I keep yawning. Alright, so the takeoff config test. Everything is in green. Let's say there's nobody in the front. There they go. Man, we're slowing, adding some power. Hmm. Way off center line. This thing is not keeping speed at all. We're doing 4 knots. We got the company message to check that in a second. Let's kick it up to like 30 something percent. See if we can keep a steady roll going. What? Let me do that. There's one more thing I do want to do. General options, traffic, templates, data, live weather on, multiplayer on, live traffic is off. What's up, Reaper? How you doing, man? I'm alright. Just trying to sort through this nonsense. I haven't played this thing in a while, and it's showing. Woo! Sensitive on that. A little easy on that other input there. Crossing the bridge. Pizza sounds good. Pizza definitely sounds good. Stuffed crazy bread. I think that bread that has the cheese in there. Right, add some power to the turn. Yeah, it's almost better to buy stuff in bulk now, man. I spent $135 yesterday. Granted, my cart was full, but still. I usually don't spend that much. Usually I spend about 80, maybe $90. And if it's like a mild shopping day, it might be like 70, as low as 70. But yeah, spent 135 yesterday. I was shocked. Alright, in the meantime, let's check that message that we have. Should just be a confirmation of the load that we took on. Yeah, I got a Sam's membership, so every once in a while I go in there. I haven't had to buy meat for I think like maybe 2 months or so. Yeah, probably going on 2 months now. I bought a shitload of meat a couple months back, and I just threw it in the deep freezer. We could turn here. Yeah, he asked me. I told him sometime next week would be good. Is the coming week, I guess now. 'Cause I think I'm only like 2 hours from you guys anyway, so shouldn't be a problem. Hey, who the hell is that? Somebody on multiplayer? Lord. Alright, coming up on 8 left. He said, nah, I can't work today. Yeah, just let me know what day. That's what I told him. I said, for the most part, I am open. Just give me a day, and I can come up there. Who knows? If there happened to be a plane, maybe I'll fly up and you guys can meet me at the airport. I don't know. It's just a matter of where I rent my planes from right now is shitty. Today, all 5 airplanes are down for maintenance. I'm like, Jesus. Alright, so we're at the runway before takeoff. Cabin crew advised brake temperature checked. Wait, can't see the brake temperature. Hold on. I guess I'll do it that way. Wheel. There we go. Brake temperatures are good. Brake fans are off. Engine mode selected as required. Packs are on. Weather radar, don't need it. Predicted wind shear auto. TCAS. TARA. Right, landing lights on. Jeez, can't get that last notch on. Alright, so let's contact the tower. Yeah, man, it's kind of messed up. They've been killing me with these planes.
7328 at runway 08 left ready for departure IFR to Figari.
Figari.
Airfreight 7328, altimeter 30.0010 tree 9er at 17. Cleared for takeoff runway 08 left.
Alright, let's confirm that.
Cleared for takeoff runway 08 left Airfreight 7328.
Alright, so, oh shoot. Get this out the way. So we have been cleared for takeoff, 8 left. But basically, it's a straight out departure for the most part. I'll make a right turn, get back on course later on, but we're just gonna go since we are ready. Increase that power to 50%. You hear them engines spool. Alright. Flex, takeoff, man, flex, SRS, runaway. Now, we can only hold the center line. 80 knots. V1. Rotate. Positive rate. Gear up. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not that busy, so yeah, he could pick a date. It should be fine with me. I think next week the only thing I have to do is the dentist on Monday. Alright, crossing through 1,300 feet. It is 1,500. Climb thrust. Look the nose and accelerate. I heard you. We're going to,
Going to 125.7 airfront 7328.
So as we cross 2,500 for 11,000. Just trying to speed up a little bit. We're at 180 now. We can go flaps 1. Right, 200 knots, flaps up. And I'll go ahead and throw that autopilot on. Alright, after takeoff checklist, landing gear is retracted, engine mode select the normal. Spoilers, let's retract those because I sure did forget to do that. Flaps are retracted, packs are on, anti-ice is as required, and exterior lights are checked. I'll turn the exterior lights off at 5,000 feet since that's transition. Not quite American standards, but we are in Europe. Alright, there we go. Transition altitude. Landing lights are off. As well as altimeter set to standard. Alright, so we're good to go. Here, okay, so we climb. This checklist to the side since I won't need it. Just double check some things. Make sure everything's good. Overhead looks perfect. You don't really want to see any lights on there. Right, crossing 10,000. Speeding up to about 280 knots. And then we have this right turn coming up. And there's a turn. We going to 37. Alright, 370. We can check the CDU. Make sure the plane is okay with that based on our. We should be able to gain 1,000 feet. Okay, so supposed to be climbing to 370, but it's saying optimum is 360. Hopefully we burn enough fuel by the time we get up there to get to 370. So I ain't tripping. Let's turn that wheel light off. Alright, let's increase the ND range. This flight's supposed to be, what, an hour and a half long? Oh, it was hour 50 minutes? How long was it supposed to be? An hour and 50 minutes, okay. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do today is go to the browser and find something to watch. The browser, where am I at? Hold on. There we go. And
what could cause a fully functional Airbus 321 to roll over so hard during the takeoff roll that the wing actually hits the runway? That and what happened after is what we're going to cover in today's video, so stay tuned.
a light mentor pilot.
The story
always
of
have some
American
good
Airlines
stories
Flight
on here.
300 is actually quite mundane, and from a pilot's perspective, that's what makes it both so interesting and so scary. The accident took place on the 10th of April 2019, and it was on the second day of a 2-day pairing for the involved crew. The day before, the crew had flown the red-eye flight from Los Angeles International Airport over towards JFK in New York, and they landed about 7 o'clock in the morning. After that, the crew had gone to their hotels, had taken a nap, gotten something to eat, worked out a little bit, and started getting ready for the second return flight back home to Los Angeles, which is going to take place in the evening. Both of the pilots involved reported that they felt well rested when they took the shuttle bus out towards the airport again, and they got a light snack in the terminal before they met up about 1 hour and 15 minutes prior to the flight. Both of the pilots who were flying together were really experienced. The captain was 58 years old. He had a little less than 20,000 hours in total and about 3,000 hours on the Airbus 320 family, the large majority of which had been flown on the Airbus 321, which was the aircraft that they were going to fly this day. He was assisted by a 58-year-old first officer who had just over 10,000 hours of total time and about 2,000 hours on the Airbus 321. These pilots had flown together before, and they had great professional respect for each other. When they met up for their return flight back to Los Angeles, they started by greeting the cabin crew, as we always do, and then they started going through the pre-flight briefing materials, their NOTAMs, flight plans, and weather. When it came to the weather, it looked absolutely perfect. It was nice en route weather. The weather at their destination and alternate was also good, as well as their departure airdrome, where there was just a little bit of crosswind expected for their expected departure runway 31 left. This was great news for the pilots who were looking forward to a nice and easy return flight back to Los Angeles. So they proceeded by checking the fuel needed, deciding on final fuel, and then sending that figure on to their dispatcher to get the fueling started. And then they proceeded to brief their 6 cabin crew members, and all of them went together down towards the aircraft. The captain was going to be pilot flying for this flight, so he did a partial walk around before he went back into the cockpit, and the first officer proceeded to do a full pre-flight walk around. When he got into the cockpit, the first thing the captain did was to check the technical status of the aircraft, a 5-year-old Airbus A321. And as he was flicking through the technical log, you could see that there was no hauled items on the list. The technical status of the aircraft was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. While he was doing that, the cabin crew finalized their safety inspection of the cabin and then started boarding the 102 passengers that was booked on this flight over towards Los Angeles. When the first officer came back from his pre-flight walk-around, the captain started briefing him on the expected taxi routing, the departure routing, and also the technical status of the aircraft. They proceeded to complete all of the pre-flight preparation in the cockpit, and then they completed the performance calculation. The takeoff weight of the aircraft was going to be about 83 tons, and with that weight, together with the wind, temperature, weather, and runway condition, they calculated that they could use something called flex temperature, which is basically when the engine thrust is derated, as in it's reduced down to the minimum needed for the departure. And this is something that we very often do on Boeing fleet. We call it assumed temperature reduction, and we do this in order to reduce both the noise footprint, the fuel used, and the maintenance of the engines. They also calculated their V speeds for departure, where V1, the decision speed, was going to be 150 knots, and their rotation speed was going to be 156 knots. The last weather that the pilot received included a wind report, where the wind was coming from 330 degrees at 15 knots, with a possible gust, as in increase in wind speed, from a direction of 340 degrees at 26 knots. So this would definitely mean a bit of crosswind for the pilots, which is something that they discussed, but didn't really see as a big threat, as it was well within the crosswind capabilities of both them and the aircraft. Now, before we go any further, it's probably a good idea to discuss a little bit about how we pilots handle crosswind during takeoff. A big disclaimer here is that I am not type rated on the Airbus 320, but I do fly the Boeing 737, and it turns out that the way that we handle crosswind takeoffs is pretty similar. So first, let's discuss a little bit why wind is an issue in the first place. When we fly, we always try to both land and take off with a headwind component. And the reason for that is because with headwind, we'll be able to maintain the indicated airspeed that we need to keep the aircraft flying at a much lower ground speed. And with a lower ground speed, the same indicated airspeed, we will need both less takeoff distance and less landing distance. But of course, the wind very rarely blows straight down the runway. It always has a tendency to come from a slight angle. And since we can't change the runway direction, it means that we pilots have to be able to deal with a bit of a crosswind component as we're taking off as well. Now, if we use as an example the situation that these pilots found themselves in, they were planning to take off from runway 31 left in JFK. That runway has a magnetic heading of 315 degrees. But the worst wind that they were expecting was coming from 340 degrees at 26 knots. Now, if that would be the case, that would mean a headwind component of about 23 knots, which is great, and a crosswind component of about 11 knots. If that wind would turn more clockwise, as into the right, it would mean that the crosswind component would become bigger and the headwind component would become smaller. But the worst crosswind component that they were to be expecting would have been straight crosswind, 26 knots, and that was still less than the maximum crosswind that they were allowed to take, which was 35 knots. Now, when it comes to the handling of this aircraft, the pilots were expecting right crosswind, which means that the wind will predominantly hit the right side of the aircraft. And if you look at the aircraft, you'll find that at the very back you have a vertical stabilizer, which is huge and it's shaped almost like a sail. This vertical stabilizer is going to take up a lot of wind, and as it does so, it will push on the right side of the rudder, making the front of the aircraft turn towards the wind, which is something called weathercocking. Obviously, this is not something that we, the pilots, want. We want to make sure that the aircraft continues to follow the center line as we're taking off. So this means that if we have right crosswind, we are going to have to work against that with a little bit of left rudder to make sure that the aircraft goes straight ahead. Now, this weathercocking effect is going to be there for the entire takeoff run, but it's mostly pronounced in the very beginning when the speed of the aircraft is very low. But of course, when the speed of the aircraft is very low, it also means that there's less air flowing over the rudder, which means the rudder is less aerodynamically effective, so the rudder in itself will not be able to maintain the center line. And this is why the rudder pedals that we pilots have, that is connected to the rudder and is controlling the rudder, is also controlling the nose wheel steering slightly. So at very low speeds, when we're taking off and we have a lot of crosswind and the aircraft wants to turn towards the right in this case, we put left rudder in, and that is going to turn the nose wheel a little bit. Now, as the speed starts building up, the rudder will become more and more aerodynamically effective. Eventually, it will take over the steering completely. But this also means that as we are doing this initial part of the takeoff, we tend to put a little bit of forward pressure on the yoke or the side stick. And that's just to make sure that there's a little bit of pressure on the nose wheel to make it more effective. So this is why you'll see pilots in the beginning of the takeoff roll applying a bit of forward pressure, especially during crosswind takeoffs. But then as the speed builds up to maybe around 80 knots or 100 knots, they will gradually start reducing that forward pressure up to almost neutral. On smaller aircraft, you also have to put aileron into the wind to counteract any rolling tendencies that a sudden gust of crosswind might create. But on larger aircraft like the Boeing 737 and the Airbus 321, you have to be very careful with that, because if you put too much aileron into the wind, that might actually cause spoilers to start coming up on the wings, and that will cause drag that will decrease your takeoff performance. And because of that, in the Boeing, we only put a little bit of aileron in, and on the Airbus, you don't put any aileron in during the takeoff roll. However, when you get to the rotation phase, you might have to put a bit of aileron into the wind to counteract any rolling tendencies that you have, and that will put you in a condition known as cross controls, where you're now sitting with left rudder to maintain the center line and a little bit of right aileron. And this cross controls also causes a bit of extra drag, and that reduces your tail strike margin in the back of the aircraft. And because of that, you have to be very careful, rotate nice and slowly to make sure that you don't tail strike the aircraft. And this can actually be quite tricky. It takes a while to learn this. And that's also why new pilots tend to have some crosswind limitations, maybe about 20 knots, even though the aircraft can take up to 35 knots. On this flight though, the crosswind component was calculated to be well less than 20 knots, giving ample margin up to the maximum crosswind component, and it is unlikely that these two very experienced pilots considered it even a threat at all. Once the cockpit preparation was all completed, the first officer asked for pushback and start clearance from air traffic control. They received that, and they started pushing back and starting their engines on time. During the pushback procedure, there was some discussion between the pilots about some new procedures that American Airlines had just implemented. These procedures were implemented in order to streamline the procedures between the Boeing and the Airbus fleet, and the first officer was pointing out that, for example, the trim check had been delayed until later on in the flow from what they were used to before. Once the engines were started, the crew requested and received taxi clearance out to holding point Kilo Echo for runway 31 left. And because there was quite little traffic at this time of night, the taxi out was really, really quick. But even though it was quick, there was no sense of time pressure or any stress. All of the procedures were handled according to the specified standard operating procedures. At time 2038, American Airlines Flight 300 received their lineup clearance from runway 31 left.
Grab my head! Wait, are you sweating? Didn't you use Allspice dry spray? Of course I did. I'm not an idiot. Why do we Dolph Lundgren? Just right here. Old Spice has long-lasting sweat protection. I'm telling you, I used it. Okay, I lied. How do I get out of this place?
Welcome to all-wheel drive 3 from Pedal. This model features a dual motor system, sporting two 1,000-watt front and rear Bafang motors, and comes with a 1008 lithium-ion battery. New controls and LCD display are a touch away with a 1200 lumen headlight to illuminate your nighttime adventures. A dual drive switch toggles the option for performance control, which sits next to the newly added turn signals for increased road safety. The AW3 includes top-of-the-line adjustable rear shock absorbers to match your ride preference, while the front suspension has a 20-inch inverted hydraulic fork. Locking up has been improved, and a new Moto front wheel lock has been added for increased theft protection. The water-resistant long saddle has custom-fitted nylon and fits two riders comfortably, and a rear cargo rack boasts aluminum alloy middle bars for increased mounting capabilities. The AW3 has upgraded puncture-resistant hybrid terrain tires and drop-down passenger pegs that flip up and down. The all-new 3-speed freewheel is now lighter and easier to use with an ergonomic gear shifter. And the disc brake set includes Tektro front and rear hydraulic brakes. A half-twist throttle and groove grip makes for the safest handling yet. The AW3 from Pedal, available now.
When the captain started to maneuver the aircraft into takeoff position, the first officer looked out through his window and said that it looks like the windsock is a little bit stiffer and coming from a slightly higher angle than what we have talked about before. This would indicate that the crosswind was likely a little bit stronger than what they had calculated, but when they discussed this, they both recognized that it was still well within limits. So up until this point, everything looks completely normal, but that's about to change, and I will tell you all about that after this short message from my sponsor. If you're passionate about science, history, and technology, then today's sponsor is Pilot Channel. If you click on the link here below, you'll get an Curiosity stream. Now back to the video. At time 20:39 and 48 seconds, American Airlines Flight 300 received their takeoff clearance. The surface wind was given as 010 degrees at 17 knots, giving them a crosswind component of about 14 knots. The captain started adding thrust symmetrically up to about 50% N1, and then he put the thrust levels into the flex detent. The aircraft started to accelerate down the runway, and the flight data recorder indicates that the captain early on made a slight correction with some right rudder, indicating that he probably wasn't perfectly lined up with the center line, but needed to go a little bit to the right to get back onto it. As the acceleration continued, the captain started inputting left rudder to counteract the crosswind from the right, as we were discussing before, and he later stated that it felt like he had to input more left rudder than he was used to. Flight data recorder showed that his input varied between 0 to 13 degrees of rudder input. The first officer calls out 80 knots, the captain responds with check, and at this point everything looks normal. There are no ECAM messages and no warning flags. At time 20, 40 and 30 seconds, the first officer calls out B1 and then 2 seconds later rotate. And here is where things are starting to go wrong. Because now the flight data recorder shows that the captain's left rudder input goes from about 8 degrees up to 24 degrees, which is nearly max, within a period of about 1.5 seconds. So that means that it's a gradual but very quick input of left rudder. This left rudder input causes the aircraft to start changing direction from a track of 315 degrees, which is the runway track, to a new track of 290 degrees, which is a hard turn to the left. The lateral acceleration changes from 0.11 Gs to 0.32 Gs, which means a fairly severe sideward movement. The captain, who doesn't realize what is causing this sudden yaw, looks out through the window and sees the edge of the runway come rushing against him. He realizes that he needs to get this aircraft airborne, otherwise they will run over the edge of the runway and into the marshlands beyond, so he inputs full aft side stick. As he does so, the nose wheel comes off the ground, and because they're in a rapid yaw towards the left, that causes the right wing to start moving quicker forward than the left wing, increasing the lift on that side, which is now causing a rapid roll towards the left. Now, the fly-by-wire system in the Airbus is supposed to be able to counteract any roll that is created by the yaw, but because this is happening so quickly, the computers that are supposed to do this correction does not have time, and the roll rate just keeps increasing. This means that at this point the aircraft is both turning off the runway and rolling rapidly towards the left, and the first officer, who is now looking out to see what's going on, realizes this and without even noticing inputs right aileron. He does this at the same time as the captain is also inputting full right aileron and right rudder. And this, the fact that both of the pilots are now inputting on the side sticks at the same time, induces a dual input warning in the cockpit. The captain now calls out, "I can't control it," and that just prompts the first officer to further input on his side stick. Now, when two pilots are inputting on the side stick at the same time without anyone taking priority, the computer is supposed to average out the input from both of them. But because both of them are putting full right aileron in, it doesn't make any difference at this point. The first officer feels that they're still rolling hard, and the roll attitude is now approaching 40 degrees, and they're still not airborne. The right main gear and the nose gear is in the air, but the left main gear is still touching the ground. At time 20, 40 and 36 seconds, the maximum roll rate of left 37 degrees is reached, and it's at this point that a sound indicating some kind of impact can be heard on the cockpit voice recorder. This is, however, not noticed by any of the pilots. From this point onwards, the input of right rudder and right aileron is starting to have an effect, and the roll is gradually starting to reduce.
And put that in my Palm Pilot.
Grammarly helps you work more efficiently, which makes accomplishing your work goals easier.
The aircraft is now pitching up 20.4 degrees and the airspeed is about 164 knots, and now the aircraft finally takes off. As soon as that happens, the first officer calls out, "Your aircraft, your aircraft, your aircraft," indicating that he's not inputting on the side stick anymore. The captain's control inputs now start oscillating between right and left, and his pitch inputs are also varying. The first officer calls out, "I don't know what's going on," but from this point, the aircraft is slowly starting to stabilize its climb out. As the aircraft is now slowly starting to gain altitude, the captain calls out, "What the hell is going on?" And the first officer responds, "I don't know, all of the engines are looking good," indicating that he thought that maybe they were suffering an engine failure, because an engine failure will have those kind of indications with a sudden yaw, but all the engines are operating as they should. The captain continues with, "It just freaking rolled on me," but from this point they're now starting to compose themselves a little bit. The captain asks for the gear to be retracted, and they continue to climb up according to their cleared standard instrument departure. As they're now climbing out, the captain elects not to engage the autopilot because he still thinks that what they have suffered is some kind of flight control malfunction, and he doesn't want the autopilot to be engaged. He wants to make sure that the aircraft is responding to his control inputs. During the climb out, the pilots continue to discuss what had just happened in a very dense and upset conversation, and the captain even mentioned that it was like a weird electron had the rudder stuck or something. This was likely a reference to the Qantas 72 incident, where another Airbus a few years earlier had suffered an incident where a flight computer caused the aircraft to suddenly drop several hundred feet several times. The aircraft continues to climb, but none of the pilots tells air traffic control what they have just experienced. Instead, they receive several frequency changes and several new altitudes, 18,000 feet, 22,000 feet, and as they're climbing out, completing their after takeoff checklist and so on, they keep discussing this, and the cockpit voice recorder shows how these two pilots were both pretty convinced that they were about to crash this aircraft, as in this was far beyond anything that any of them had previously experienced in their careers. At time 20:43, the captain makes a statement that he says that he doesn't like to fly this aircraft in any kind of crosswind, possibly indicating a little bit of lack of confidence both in the aircraft and in his own crosswind capabilities. Anyway, as they're climbing out, you can now start to see on the cockpit voice recorder how the first officer is starting to hint that maybe we should think about returning back to JFK. He makes very subtle hints about this, how maybe the captain should think about covering his own ass when it comes to this. Maybe he should contact engineering to see whether or not they can give him some kind of cloud cover to come back. Because remember, at this point, none of the pilots knows that there's any damage to the aircraft. The aircraft is flying perfectly. There's no warnings, there's no ECAM messages, and there's no indication that anything really is wrong. At time 20:45 and 52 seconds, a cabin crew member dings the pilots to try to get their attention. This is about 5 minutes after the incident, indicating that the cabin crew now likely thinks that the pilots must be out of whatever critical flight phase they might be in, and there is time to let them know that they have noticed that something is wrong. This indicates great training on behalf of the cabin crew, because they waited just long enough in order to let the pilots do whatever they need to do, but not so long that the aircraft can climb up too high in case whatever it was that they noticed was indicative of, for example, a tail strike, which could mean structural issues with the aircraft and potential problems if the aircraft pressurizes too much. The captain answers the call and the cabin crew asks, "What was that?" because that was really, really scary. The captain explains that they've had some kind of flight control malfunction of some sort, but that the aircraft is now fully under control and that they're evaluating what's going on. The cabin crew responds that she is really happy to hear that and that there are no injuries down the back, but she also has some follow-up questions. She asks, for example, what the rudder does and whether or not they need the rudder when they're going in for landing later on. And this is a small detail in the report, but it's something that I think is really important to highlight because it shows a very good company culture. I really like when cabin crew ask these kind of fairly technical questions, because it indicates that they feel that they should ask those kind of questions, that they should remind the pilots about the possibility of future problems that might come ahead. And what makes me even more happy is the way the captain responds to that question, because he commends her on it. He says, "That's a great question. We are going to look at how the aircraft responds and how the flight controls respond before we go in for landing." What this tells me is that it's likely that American Airlines have a quite good company culture, something where all of the members of the team feel that they have the ability and that they should speak up whenever they have a question. And this is something that I talk quite a lot about in the courses about leadership that I am doing at the moment. When the captain comes back from his call with the cabin crew, the aircraft is cleared to flight level 220 or 22,000 feet. He continues to discuss with the first officer, and the first officer continues to hint that maybe we should return back to JFK and land there. And it's at this point that it seems to dawn on the captain that yes, that is the logical thing to do. You know, we've experienced something very non-normal here. We should go back. But it also sows doubt in his mind. Why didn't he think about this before? It starts to dawn on him that maybe he's actually in shock. Maybe he's not fit to continue to fly, because returning should be the first thing that he should have thought about, but it hasn't entered his mind up until this point. He's just been very shook up of the whole experience. And this points to yet another really important thing that I think that this crew is doing really well, and that is the ability to self-assess. Because what this captain is doing now is he's taking a cold, hard look at himself, and he's asking, am I really fit to fly? Should I continue? Have I done the things that I was expecting of myself? And the answer to that is no. And he realizes that, and he has the personal strength to actually act on it. And that is not as easy as it might sound. Anyway, he continues to talk to the first officer. He says that he agrees, and he asks the first officer to please start to coordinate a return clearance back towards JFK. At time 20:50 and 5 seconds, the first officer calls up New York Control and explains what happened during the departure. He also asks them to get a clearance to return back towards JFK for landing. Now, this happened about 10 minutes after their departure, and the reason that I'm pointing out that timing is because of another point that I want to highlight, and that is the importance of quick communication whenever something happens. Because what has actually happened here is that this aircraft has experienced a quite severe impact with its left-hand wing. The wing has impacted a distance marker on the runway, and it's taken out several edge lights on the runway as well. And it turns out that it's actually strewn the debris from that over about a 2,000 feet area over the runway, but also over a perimeter road. Now, this happened during the hours of darkness, and because of that, no one actually saw it happening. So some external sources that I've been talking to about this story, who was actually working at JFK at the time, said that from the time that this aircraft departed, until they were actually notified that something had happened on the runway.
I don't know.
About
I'm not a big
15
Mexican
other
fan.
aircraft had the time to depart on the same runway.
I don't
wanted
eat
to use
tacos
this
and
incident
stuff
as
like that.
an example to you
I can take a
pilots
look at
out
their
there,
menu
how
and see what they
important
got,
it is
though.
to communicate whenever something unusual happens, like a bird strike or something like this, so that a traffic control can send someone out and check and possibly avoid any further incidents from happening. Once the crew had explained what had happened, the New York controller asked them if they wanted to declare an emergency. The crew discussed that a little bit between themselves, but decided that the aircraft was handling well and there was no indication of immediate danger, so they chose not to declare a mayday. Instead, they leveled off the aircraft at 20,000 feet, and now the captain had decided that he indeed wasn't fit to continue to fly. So he hands the controls over to the first officer, and he takes up the role as pilot monitoring, handling the radio.
What are you, 12? You've been using the same stink stick since high school. It's time to turn your armpits into charm pits. All right, class. Today's lesson.
The first officer briefs for arrival back into JFK. They decide to use runway 04 left for arrival because that's the longest runway, and they know that they're going to be landing slightly overweight. But they choose not to go through the overweight landing checklist just because they know from experience that it's not going to be a problem, and they have checked the performance to make sure that they can land. And this is something that obviously you can discuss whether or not you should or should not do. But in this case, the pilots decided to prioritize a quick return back to JFK
yes, sir.
and to
Good for
continue
me.
working on the checklist. At time 20:54, a cabin crew member once again calls up the cockpit. When the captain takes up the interphone, the cabin crew member tells her that a passenger who's sitting near the wing has reported to her that it looks like the wing is damaged. It looks like it's dented. The captain responds that he doesn't really understand what that means, but it doesn't matter because they're returning back to JFK anyway. And he then briefs the cabin crew about the return. The cabin crew member acknowledges this and hangs up the interphone, but about 6 minutes later she comes back and tells the captain that she's been looking at the wing and it looks like there is some kind of damage near the wingtip. The captain thanks her for the information and proceeds to give the cabin crew a further briefing about the arrival and tells them to be vigilant during the landing. And then he makes a PA to the passengers, telling them that they've had some flight control problems and that they're returning towards JFK as a precaution. After this, the aircraft descends normally, following clearances to return back towards the airport. The first officer slows the aircraft down.
Either one is good.
Extends flaps according to normal procedures, and the aircraft handles well. He flies a normal ILS approach, and at time 21:08 and 36 seconds, the aircraft touches down safely on runway 04 left in JFK. When the aircraft pulls up on stand, the passengers are disembarked normally, and the pilots are greeted by maintenance personnel who explains to them that they must have hit something really big. The pilot goes out and are shocked to see that there is some substantial damage to the left-hand wing. The outboard leading edge slat has been filed down due to ground contact, and there is a huge dent just below the sharklet where a piece of the distance marker, the runway distance marker, is still embedded into the wing. After further examination, it was also concluded that the left-hand wing had been permanently bent upwards from about mid-span of the wing, causing the left wingtip to be about 6 inches higher than the right wingtip. And because of this, American Airlines decided to permanently retire the aircraft and scrap it. So what actually caused this then? Well, the final report was not very detailed when it came to this. It basically concluded that after consulting the cockpit voice recorder, the flight data recorder, and Airbus, it seems like it was the captain's excessive use of rudder during the rotation that caused the incident. Airbus went in and examined 270,000 different flights, and out of all of those flights, only one other flight had more or equal amount of rudder input during the rotation. And over 2,300 of those flights had more crosswind than what these guys experienced. So the final report basically concluded that this was down to pilot error, but they never really revealed what caused it, and we will never really know. Maybe the captain responded to a sudden gust. Maybe he was sitting wrong on his chair. That might be an explanation to why he felt that he had more left rudder than he was used to, or maybe it was just a sudden brain fart as he was doing the rotation. We will never really know that. And that's what I feel is different with this incident from other accidents and incidents that I've been looking at, where there tends to be a long chain of different causal factors that leads up to the incident. On the other hand, it seems that once this lapse had occurred, the good CRM training of American Airlines, the robust procedures that the crew had, and the sturdiness of the Airbus 321 seemed to have jumped in and saved the day and stopped this from becoming a real bad accident. The pilots received some retraining by American Airlines with focus on crosswind handling, and as far as I know, they're now back flying again, which is what they should be. This is a great example of how just culture is supposed to work, where if someone makes an honest mistake, no matter how bad it is, providing that they can be given retraining and shown that they have reached the level of competence that they need, they're back flying again, exactly the way it should work. Now, if you want to see a video where debris on the runway led to one of the most famous air crashes in the world, well then check this video out. Or if you want to binge on this series, then check out this playlist. If you want to support the work that I do here on...
Woo, that was nuts. Yeah, there's no way. No way. And they get to live and talk about it, so that's all that really matters, right? Cool with Longhorn or Outback. Yeah, Longhorn or Outback, either one, they're fairly the same to me. So alright. That's cool with me. Alright, so now that we're back in the flight deck, we are roughly, seems to be about 260 miles, 280 miles, let's see. How far off am I? I'm like 314 miles, okay. It be like that sometimes, man. You really don't think about it until it's presented to you. I get it. Food. I got a lot going on in September. Think about it. Right. Let's get back to this flight. We're about a half an hour out, so let's get an update on the weather. He said, I need to know these things, man. I understand. Very important and useful information. Why is the ATIS offline? There we go. Okay, so 250 at 11 knots. Alright. Still fairly doable. I ain't scared of no crosswind. Alright, so let's go back now and start to brief this approach into Figari. So we did the Varick to Victor, correct? Alright, so let's make sure I got this all right. Okay, yeah, so alright. Abandoned parking lot. Picked the wrong spot. Okay, alright, so we're coming off of Eric on a course of 130 towards the AJO, Ajaccio VOR, 6,500 feet there. We'll cross over. K750, Kilo Fox 750 at 6,100 or higher. And then over to Massau at 5,000. So let's see. We can switch it over to plan. We could probably do, oh, nope, that's not going to work. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Guess to stay on 1 and zoom out. Yeah, that'll work. We can scroll up some. So what it's going to do here is, how about this? After Varick, K750, LaSalle at 6,800, and do we hit a left turn? What's going on here? Flight path too steep ahead. That's what I was kind of wondering. That's what I was wondering. Alright. Let's really look at this. So 10, 1, 10. Go back to the chart for a second. So I wonder if I change, being at Massal at 5,000 shouldn't change anything. Why are we leaving Paris to go to Figari? Because it's an everyday regular scheduled flight. Air France 7328, non-stop service. A lot of times I do these flights for my virtual airline. Let's see if I can pull that stuff up here. Let's see what I can pull up. Alright, so back to the browser. So Flying Tigers Group is my virtual airline, but you can like fly for damn near any airline on here that's real in the world. So I don't know why this map won't show up all the way, but I'm pretty sure this one right here. Nope, that's not me. This one. Yep, there I go right there. So Air France 7328, A320, Paris to Figari, speed 78% of Mach 1, altitude 37,000 feet. There we go. So yeah, so you can see we go into the cruise center and look at my logbook. I've done 529 flights so far, so this one will be 530. I am a captain, and I've logged at least 1,300 hours, almost 1,400 hours with them. So yeah, Little Caesars isn't bad, you know, as long as you don't go in having high expectations. But yeah, so oh, I was supposed to come back from low. I forgot all about that. But yeah, so this is usually what I do. I just log my flights. They're all real world flights. It's never nothing that I just made up or anything. In real life, there's a plane actually doing the same thing. Maybe not at the same time, but it's scheduled to do it. So I just wanted something to eat. It'd be like that. It'd definitely be like that. So let's get back into the cockpit. And switch this back over to arc. And we should be descending in maybe 20 minutes. 20 minutes or so. I'm gonna go grab something to drink really quick before so. I'll be right back. Don't know what to play. What all do you play besides Satisfactory and have I seen you play anything other than Satisfactory? Oh yeah, the Cult of the Lamb. Did you beat Cult of the Lamb? Damn. Alright, well, I don't know. What else do you play? Might be time for a new game there, buddy. Open World Survivors, Builders, Rogues, Likes, Metroidvanias. Surprised I haven't seen you play Fortnite or anything like that. Call of Duty. Those done over. Alright, let me think. You played the new Call of Duty Warzone? Damn. I was sitting there playing it the other day, trying to get a feel. I mean, a lot of those games don't feel good playing them by yourself. Like like Fortnite. Like, I'd rather play Fortnite with my friends than play it by myself. So I really don't play Fortnite unless at least one of my friends are on or something, you know, somewhere along the lines of that. Just trying to think. Man, hold on. Now I gotta go actually look. Now you got my brain spinning. I'm gonna try to keep it on Steam. Did you try Bendy in the Ink Factory back in the day? I see. I see. And there's always multiverses, which I see you guys don't really play anymore. Got the wrong stuff. He said, "Nah, Bendy's the past." Cult of the Lamb. Sitting here looking, man. Fighters never stick around long. What about Elden Ring? Everybody's playing that. Alright, so it's looking like I'm 50 miles from my top of descent. Damn! My man was not playing. Shit. I was watching some chick the other night play it with one hand and whatnot. She wasn't doing bad either. Yeah, man, I don't know. Maybe you might want to throw in an emulator and play something old. Usually when I don't know what to play, I either jump on the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis, which I need to finish playing Sonic. I did play Sonic 1 on camera. It's time to do 2. Hold on, you know what? I went up there and got that drink and didn't even bring it down. Hold on. To be crashed, Reaper. Balloons, tower defense 6. I've never heard of that one. What about like do you like games like Fall Guys? That one is really interesting to do on some downtime type of deal. Or Among Us, stuff like that. Six. Hmm. Almost there, almost there. Ten miles from top of descent. Quick vibe check. There we go on the map. Or on the chart, so to say. So, heading to the Varek. Just need to be at 6,500 by the time we hit the Ajaccio VOR. Alright, let's dial in 6,500. Oh. I forgot about this thing. So how about this? 5,000 was the lowest. Let's dial in 5,000. And once you cross the TOD, I'll let it do its thing. TOD. Alright, I'm here. We just started going down too, so feel that way about like Fighter Z. Where we at? Where we at? Oh, he right there. Oh Lord. I just couldn't. To play TD6? I'm gonna have to look it up because I don't even know what that is. Side note, Duke said he'll be right back. That was like, I feel like 30 to 40 minutes ago. And I understand certain games are like that. I can't. Wait, let me rephrase that. I can do Fortnite by myself. It's just not fun. I definitely understand that. Yeah, his right back is definitely a lie. I should probably send him a text now, like where you at. What the hell is going on? Alright, so we just turned over Valek. Varek. So we need to be at 6,500 or higher over Ajaccio. So, yep, so we're going to be doing a left turn. So we're going to come down. Okay, thank you. I'll take a look at it in a second. I'm going to come down this 130 radio over Ajaccio at 6,500 or higher, which would probably be at like 10,000, I think. Over the Kilo Fox 750, over the Kilo Fox 700, over the Massal, and then from Massal we'll hit a left turn, circling left turn, onto final for runway 23. Runway 23, and I think it's ILS that. Let's check out the Discord. Oh, this is different looking. Very different. Let's see here. Alright, you fly the plane, Reaper, while I go look this up. What the fuck did I do? That's what I did. Yeah, this gameplay looks really intense. What the hell is going on? Overwhelmingly positive reviews. Alright. Have you tried? You don't play GTA? Forgot about that one. That one's like the universal. Everybody plays GTA. 3 maps on easy. Shit. $21,000 for, I guess, 5,000 in the end. Couldn't get back into GTA. Yeah, that's like the universal game, man. And they keep forever updating it, so it's always good. Like, just play with me. Alright, I'll play it with you, man. But you're gonna have to teach me how to play, because I have no clue. Yeah, 16,000 feet, alright. Appreciate it, bro. Thank you. I received the gifts. Yeah, you gonna have to teach me this one for sure. We're at 14,600. Is that what the heck am I looking at here? Okay, that must be the go around. Missed approach procedure afterwards. That is one thing I did not brief the you're welcome, Reaper. Did not brief the ILS-23, which is right there. Oh, why is it jumping? Okay, that's not good. So we'll fly over the Figari. Oh, we shouldn't be flying over Figari. We should be flying like towards... Wait a second. I thought it said we were going over the northeast of the field. I don't know what this thing is doing though. 3. Yeah, that's what it's doing. I don't. Why it's jumping around like that? Let's try something else. We'll do the RMP5. And it's still jumping. Alright, let's go back to the Varric 2 Victor. It's not jumping on the Varric. It's crazy. Yeah, so we're going the northeast of the field, so... Right. Alright, so crossing 10,000, what is the transition altitude in this place? I have no clue. That's another thing I should have looked at. Is it on here? No, but it's definitely on that ILS. That ILS chart. Transition altitude 5,000. Okay. Whoa. Alright, so below 10,000, 9,800 right now. Supposed to be shooting for 5,000. Alright, so the airport should be right there. Dookie won't play with you. Dookie is a hardcore Toomba player. That's all he plays is Toomba. Alright, so I'll say everybody start a left turn here. You know, I did not even enter anything, no destination data. but we should be fine. Get back into the CDU here. Not have time to enter it. We can just go straight into approach phase anyway. Let's pull this up. Go back to the main page. Wow, sir, you came back after 15 years. 250 at 12, 25, and 10. 250 at 12, 25, and 10. Alright, so normal ILS, I'm assuming it's 200. Alright, so as we come around this turn, we're like gonna be on a left base, a long left base, I'm guessing. Yeah, Dookie, come on, you should play. Ape escape. So according to the approach, we should be just jumping around thing at 4,000 feet. I can take 4,000. Up, up, up. Alright, coming through 5,000. Altimeter is set. 2983. Alright, we are coming on to final now. Probably should have contacted somebody a long time, but let's go for it.
Air 7328 is passing 4,400 feet, climbing 11,000 feet.
I am not climbing.
Airfront 7328, Marseille Center altimeter 29er, decimal 82, continue as planned. Airfront 7328, you are 11 miles northeast. Maintain present heading and altitude, expect ILS runway 23 approach via Maisel transition. Cleared to Maisel.
Right, do we have ILS? Oh, we are too high. I'm just going to take over manually because we're high and I'm not going to let the computer chase it.
Maintain present heading and altitude. Expect ILS runway 23 approach via Maisel transition. Cleared to Maisel
Alright,
Airfront
let's hurry up
7328.
and get this together. We'll throw out the spoilers really quick. Shut up. We work together. Alright, so as we're coming in, we are 6.5 miles
2,500.
and 2,500 feet off the ground. A lot of stuff here to do. Lights are on. APU is on, so I ain't got to worry about it. Alright, as we catch up to the glide slope, go ahead and bust some gears out. Auto brake medium. We're still high. Flaps 2.
Please expedite your climb 11,000 feet.
I'm not doing that, man.
1,000.
As the airspeed drops, jump back down here, rearm the spoilers. Alright, flaps full. And we are high, but we should be fine.
1,000.
1,000 feet off the ground. I wonder why it says I'm so high. I guess I am. It feels like I'm doing a lot better.
7328, please expedite your climb 11,000 feet.
500.
There we go.
400. 100 above. 300.
Trees are rocking me around pretty bad.
Minimum.
Right. Woo, woo.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 5.
Where? That was pretty smooth. Medium braking. Are we not stopping? No, we wasn't. There we go. Okay. Exit first. Turn to the left. They are waiting for us.
Figari ground Air France 7328 request taxi to parking.
Turn off the lights.
28 taxi to general aviation parking via taxiway Charlie.
Where are you at? Hit the brakes because I can't find this thing.
Taxiing to general aviation parking via taxiway Charlie Air France 7328.
There we go. Flaps up. Disarm spoilers. TCAS off. We should be good to go. They are waiting for us. Right there. Got 2 minutes, not bad. Left turn. Marshalers marshaling me in. This. Oh, brake too much. And a little bit. Give me a little bit more power. Be good there. Up, we got a little bit more. On, baby. Alright, parking brake set. Masters off. Alright, parking brake on, APU is already on, and masters are off, beacon light off, seatbelt sign off, transponder is on standby, anti-ice fuel pumps off. Alright, so I'm leaving the fuel pumps on though for the APU. So now we can hook up external power, which we have. Now we can turn the APU off. Jump over here. Deboard, of course you can deboard. Ground services. Let's hook up them stairs. Or you know what? Let's not use them stairs. Let's call in the ground services.
Figari ground Airfront 7328. Could you please send a ramp?
Airfront 7328 ramp is on its way.
There, that's set. Alright, so pirate sent. Let's see, what time does 7329 go out? We landed at 9 o'clock. 9:50. So it's a 50-minute turn. So 7328's in the books. I submitted the pirate, so I'm all good.